Hello, this is Greg Boots. I wanted to take some time covering the key benefits for us as individual tax filers. There's a lot to take in within this bill. It's over 800 pages long. I'm not going to be covering any of the corporate benefits or small business owner benefits or a lot of the information that's covered within this massive stimulus package. Really want to focus on the four benefits for us as individual tax filers that many people are not aware of. A little bit about me. I'm the CEO of Executive Wealth Solutions. I'm an author. Back in 2013, I was voted one of Washington's top lawyers. Just recently designated as a lawyer of distinction in the area of tax law. I'm a retirement income certified professional, also a certified financial educator, and I've been a consulting source for Entrepreneur Magazine over a number of years. So, what are the key elements for us as individuals within the country? Well, the big part and the one that's received the most publicity on the news is the stimulus payments for us as individual tax filers. We also have expanded unemployment benefits, access to retirement accounts, and student loan deferment. This is an unprecedented time within our country with this illness. We've seen massive unemployment, impact in regards to our financial system, and overwhelming fear of what's going to happen from a medical standpoint and also an economic standpoint within our country. So let's look at first the stimulus checks where the vast majority of the population are going to be eligible for. So this is a one-time payment. And there are caps on the benefits that we would see. So if you're an individual tax filer, your lump sum benefit would be $1,200. $2,400 for joint tax filers. There's a $500 per child under the age of 16 benefit. But there are requirements in order for us to be eligible because not every single person is going to receive this benefit or receive the full benefit. So first and foremost, you have to be filing your taxes in order to be eligible for this benefit. You can't be claimed as a dependent on another person's tax return. We have income limitations, and you can't be a worker in the United States without a green card. So what is it that you have to do to receive this benefit? The great thing about it is we don't have to do anything. It'll be an auto deposit if the IRS has your bank account information. If they don't, you'll be receiving a check. Now, this stimulus package just went into effect 3 days ago. And what we're being told is you can expect a payment within the next 3 weeks. If you believe that you're eligible for a payment and you haven't received payment, there's also going to be a paper notice sent out in the mail a few weeks after the scheduled disbursement. So if you don't see your disbursement, you want to check that notice that you're receiving to see if you were eligible, and if so, where are the funds, if they haven't been deposited or if you haven't received a check. Now, looking at the income limitations, which is a big part of this individual one-time payment. So if you're a single tax filer, not head of household, but you just file an individual 1040, 1040EZ, 1040A, we have these income limitations, and it's from $75,000 to $99,000. And I'll go over the phase out between $75,000 and $99,000 in adjusted gross income. When you make over $75,000, your benefit will be reduced by $5 for every $100 that you earn over $75,000. It'll be completely phased out once you're at the $99,000 mark. So for example, if your adjusted gross income was $85,000, your stimulus check would be $700. Now for joint filers, basically we're doubling this number from $150,000 to $198,000. Now we still have this income phase out once you are over $150,000, and it's the same $5 for every $100 over that limitation. So for example, in 2019, your adjusted gross income was $175,000. Your stimulus check for combined total of the joint tax filers would be $1,150. Now, there's also an exception in regards to head of household. So if you're filing as a head of household, your income limitations are higher than those of an individual filer. We see the phase out between $112,500 and $136,500 during that year. So if you're $112,500 or below, you'll receive that flat $1,200. Then we see that same phase out, $5 for every $100 over that minimum limitation. For example, in 2019, your adjusted gross income was $120,000. Your stimulus check would be $825. Now, this eligibility is based upon what is known as your adjusted gross income. Now, this is different from your gross income. Your gross income is your total income from wages, tips, capital gains, dividends. Your adjusted gross income is that total gross income amount minus any above the line deductions. So where do you go to find your adjusted gross income if you're wanting to calculate out what your anticipated check will be? And there's a lot of resources online where there's a calculation where you can look and see, crunch in those numbers to see what your anticipated payment would be. If you just want to look and do that calculation, especially if you haven't yet filed your 2019 return, on 2018 1040, it's going to be on line 7. For your 2019 return, it's going to be on line 8B. Now, some of the additional key benefits in regards to that is that stimulus check that you receive, there's not going to be any income tax on that payment. And another big one for individuals is that we're not looking at garnishment of this payment in most circumstances. So for example, garnishment to repay debts, even those to the IRS for back taxes, will not be garnished. But there is a major exception in terms of people who are behind on their child support. This stimulus check is still subject to garnishment. Now, let's look at the expanded unemployment benefits, because this is affecting millions of Americans who are now required to stay at home for social distancing purposes. So we're seeing an increased benefit that will be eligible for our individuals who are receiving unemployment. And this will cover full-time employees and part-time employees. And what this benefit equals out to is an additional $600 weekly payment on top of the amount that you're receiving from the state. So where do you go about calculating out your benefit or estimating your benefit? Well, if the average worker earns $1,000 per week, and unemployment typically replaces 40 to 45% of that income based upon your state's max benefit amount, this is how we would look at the numbers. So if you make that $1,000 per week and your state maximum unemployment benefit is $400, you will receive an additional $600 on top of that for a total weekly benefit of $1,000. But it is absolutely essential that you check with your state to determine what is your maximum state unemployment benefit, because some states are more liberal and they can be more conservative based upon that percentage of income that you're receiving from your state's unemployment. Now, regardless of what that limitation cap happens to be, you're still going to be receiving $600 on top of that amount. One of the biggest changes or benefits that we're seeing in the stimulus package is now we have unemployment coverage for the self-employed, because traditionally self-employed individuals are not eligible for state unemployment because they're not paying that unemployment tax component out of their paychecks. So what we see, if you're self-employed and even if you're not eligible for state unemployment, there's going to be a $600 per week benefit that's going to be provided by the federal government. Now, since this is such a new enactment, all of the details in regards to how do we go about filing as self-employed individuals for this benefit. And so this is still a work in progress. Now, what is our length of benefit that can be received under unemployment? Well, what we're seeing is an additional 13 weeks of unemployment. So that $600 payment will last up to an additional, basically, 4 months. And it covers weeks of unemployment ending on July 31st. But you want to check with your state in terms of what is the length of your unemployment benefit. Most states provide 26 weeks of unemployment benefits, but a lot of states out there provide less length of time for unemployment benefits. Regardless of the length that your state provides unemployment benefits, let's say, for example, that it's more generous, then that 26 weeks will still be capped at a total of 39 weeks for benefits, even under this stimulus package. So some of the common questions that I've been hearing is, how long does this program cover? Well, workers who are newly eligible for unemployment starting January 27th of this year, when we first started to really see the outbreak here in Washington State, it'll cover from January 27th through December 31st of this year. Now, what if you're already receiving unemployment? Your benefits are still going to be extended out by 13 weeks, and you'll receive that $600 per week extra benefit. Now, don't forget, we're still capped at that total of 39 weeks of unemployment. Now, what if your unemployment ran out? Well, what I would do is, you're eligible to reapply and receive your additional 13 weeks with that additional $600 weekly benefit included. Now, who's not eligible? Well, for those of you who are currently able to work remotely, well, you're still actively employed, so you would be excluded from this unemployment coverage currently. Now, if your situation changes, and I certainly hope that it doesn't, then you become eligible for unemployment. If you're not working right now, but you're receiving paid sick leave or you're receiving paid family leave, you're not going to be eligible for this benefit. And new workers into the job force who can't find jobs, well, unfortunately, you're not eligible for this benefit. Now, we've seen some dramatic changes also in regards to access to retirement account funds. And I'm not going to go into whether or not I think this is a good idea. I would generally look at accessing your retirement as a last result, but we've seen expanded hardship distributions and qualified plans. These are our 401ks, our 403bs, our IRAs. You're now eligible to withdraw up to $100,000. But it has to be based upon a hardship from the coronavirus outbreak. And what does that mean? You, your spouse, or a dependent tested positive for the virus, and then this component will cover most people. You suffered a negative economic consequence from the outbreak because you can't go to work based upon social distancing. There's no 10% penalty if you're under the age of 59 and a half. And what you're able to do under this package is, instead of having to eat that full tax liability within the year that you took the distribution, you're able to spread that tax liability over a 3-year period. And one thing that's also really unique is that you have the ability to put that money back within that 3-year period, which will then reduce your overall tax liability. If you have a qualified plan, again, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, there's an increased loan amount. You can borrow up to $100,000. Now, normally we have what is known as a 50% cap, where, let's say, for example, you have $80,000 in your retirement account, you would be capped out at being able to borrow 50%. So the max you would be able to borrow prior to the stimulus package would be $40,000. That 50% cap rule is suspended. Now, you can also take required minimum distributions once you're 70 and a half. And what we've seen, and we saw this back in 2008 during the Great Recession, is that you can suspend your required minimum distributions for 2 years. So say, for example, you're 71 and you want to suspend those payments, you could go all the way out to 73. And that 50% penalty that's normally required to be paid is going to be suspended during that period of time. Again, in regards to accessing your retirement accounts, potentially suspending your required minimum distributions, I would treat this as a last resort because it can definitely have a dramatic impact over time in regards to the income that you'll be receiving during your retirement. Another big item for a great number of the working population is in regards to student loans, and those are people who happen to be receiving unemployment or are ineligible to currently work. So we're seeing a payment suspension on your student loans. And this is going up through September 30th. We will receive an automatic payment suspension for any student loan held by the federal government. A big component of this is that your interest is not going to accrue during that suspension, and you can continue to pay down principal. If you have the funds, this is a great opportunity to minimize and reduce that overall student loan debt. In order to be eligible for this payment suspension, it has to be a loan held by the federal government. Typically, these are called what are known as direct loans, student loans from the federal government, taken within the last 10 years. These are automatically eligible, but not all loan types are eligible in regards to the suspension under the stimulus package. So loans that aren't going to be covered. The majority of older federal family education loans that are not owned by the federal government. Your Perkins loans, loans from state agencies or private lenders. I encourage you to contact your loan holders if you have these types of loans to see if they're offering their own assistance programs in regard to loan deferral. These are really the high points. I know we're getting inundated with a lot of information on the news, online, really focusing on small business benefits, large business bailouts, and a lot of the other nuances that people may or may not agree with what is in the stimulus package. I believe that this is really just the first step. What the federal government is saying is that there certainly can be additional laws passed if we see this virus continue to spiral potentially out of control. We're not flattening that curve. Social distancing rules are going to be potentially extended, whether it's at the federal level, which we just heard yesterday that is now occurring out through April 30th. If your state is extending out their social distancing, more likely than not, we're going to see some additional benefits being passed by the federal government. And so you still want to keep apprised of all of these different changes in the law. But I think it's really important just to focus right now for the vast majority of the population that are suffering this dramatic economic consequence by not being able to go to work. I hope you found this presentation informative. As the law continues to evolve or we see new laws, I'll be posting additional videos just to keep you apprised, not to have all of the potentially negative press that we're seeing in regards to what's in, what's out of the different bills. What we really want to focus on right now, or what I want to focus on right now, are what are the individual benefits, the key benefits. There are certainly additional benefits within the stimulus package that we're seeing, but these are the ones that most people are currently concerned about. Stay safe during this time. It is definitely an unprecedented time, and I wish the best for you and your family members as we go through this economic and health crisis within our country. Thank you.